Check, check. Okay, well, good evening. Appreciate those who are coming tonight. I know you guys can hear me just fine, and I know you don't need me to have the mic, but we do have a live stream with YouTube, and so we want to make sure our audio is going there as well. Thank you so much for coming out and giving of your time. I know time is very, very precious, and giving of it on a Thursday evening is a challenge. So thank you for giving of your time for really a very, very important cause as we think about the mental health of our kids. Specifically middle school age kids. I've been in education for 16 years, and 15 of that 16 has been in middle school, and a lot has changed about middle school in those 15 years. Mainly the things that our kids have access to now that they didn't have access to before, which changes a lot of what they think about and talk about. And so one of the things that we felt like was really important here for us at the middle school was to bring in some professionals to talk about what it means to support our kids as they go through a very, very challenging time. If I didn't introduce myself, I'm Trevor Gertzen, the principal here at the middle school. My wife and I, our oldest child is 10 and on the way to middle school. And so we're getting close to having that experience that many of you are already living with the highs and lows that they experience. And one of the things I've noticed with my own child and with how they have access to things now they've never had access to before is that our kids don't need us for information anymore. They can get anything they want. What they need us for is to translate that information for them because they can see whatever they want to see. They can find it on their phones in a heartbeat. They see it on social media. And so part of what our job is as educators, adults, parents, is to help our kid navigate a very, very challenging world. You guys know because you're living the highs and lows of the emotional roller coaster of having a middle school kid. So part of what we wanted to do as a school was say, we want to come alongside you and support you and give you guys the tools to work with your kids. We see your kids 8 hours a day, which is a wonderful 8 hours. We have great support in Miss Riffle, Miss Fales, but we're with you in 8 hours. You guys have the other 16 hours with your kids, and we want to equip you guys with the tools so you can help them be successful and move forward. And so we've been very, very lucky to partner with Advent Health and with Zero Reasons Why to give you guys some tools to work with your kids, and also for you guys to know that we have supports and resources that we want to be able to connect you guys with. And so our partnership with Advent, with Zero Reasons Why, is very, very important. And we're going to give them an opportunity here in a minute to be the experts. I am not the expert on mental health. Sometimes I feel like it when I work with kids. That's one of the things I absolutely love about being a principal, is getting to work with kids. And as many of Miss Riffle knows, Miss Fales knows, a lot of my day is spent one-on-one with kids. And that's what I absolutely love about my job. But sometimes there's issues that are bigger than what a school can handle and a school is equipped to do. That's why we have professionals that we want to work with. And so that's why we bring them here tonight for all of us. So I do want to tell you we have Miss Becky Riffle here tonight. She's our school counselor. She's going to be here to answer questions. We have Miss Larkin Fales. She's our social worker. She's actually going to be in the back of the room. So if you have any questions midway through or afterwards, she is more than happy to spend time with you, talk to you, encourage you along the way. So with that, I'm going to introduce Miss Allie Sealing. Allie Sealing is representative of the local Advent branch here, and then she is going to move us on with our program.
Thank you. So first I want to say thank you to Mr. Gertzen. This is such an important event. And also thank you to my colleagues and Zero Reasons Why. I think awareness and ending the stigma and also knowing your resources is exactly what you'll learn today, and that's kind of the goal. So just to introduce who is here. First, as he said, I'm Allie Sealing. I oversee our outpatient clinics. I'm still in Spring Hill a couple of days a week, but all over the city. But we also have, so we have kind of outpatient and inpatient here. But Rennie McKinney is our Advent Health Director of Behavioral Health. Greg Helsel is Advent Health Clinical Manager. Jessica Rich, Advent Health Therapist and Spring Parent, right? Yeah, so they're all on campus. And then I also wanted to make sure and call attention, Samantha Schroeder is here. She's in our Spring Hill office, kind of in the thick of it with lots of you out there in the community. She sees a lot of mental health, kind of first line mental health, and does a great job with those two. Kyra Fuchs is our Zero Reasons Why Teen Council member and Spring Hill High School senior. Elise Belcher, I think she's out at the table. Oh, she's right there. Okay. Zero Reasons Why Teen Council member and Spring Hill High School senior. And then Becky, as he introduced, the counselor. So Advent Health is really proud to partner with our schools as well as Zero Reasons Why to do all we can to bring resources, whether it's outpatient connecting to our inpatient, we work very closely all together to make sure we're providing the best patient care possible. And we're here for you in any capacity that you need, including, I know there's 2 different events coming up. The school district is having a QPR training online, I think on the 29th. And then Advent Health and the city is having a QPR training event live. Live and on April 24th as well. So more information coming about that soon. So welcome. I'll turn it over to our professionals here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Allie. We are 6-foot distancing up here, and we've been vaccinated. So if you don't mind, as we're speaking, we're going to take our masks down in hopes that you might be able to better understand us. I don't know if we have anything left to cover between Allie and Trevor in terms of everything you guys said. But one thing that was missed, Allie, when you were introducing me, is I am a Spring Hill High School parent of a graduate. And she made it. She got through. But I will tell you, when she entered this very building in 6th grade, I wasn't sure she was going to make it. She actually moved from Prairie Creek to this school and did not get to start on the first day of 6th grade. In fact, she started on the 3rd day, because we had lost my mother, which was tragic for our family, but how hard for a kid going into middle school and not being there to figure out how to unlock her locker. Her anxiety on that 3rd day of school, which was her first day, come on in, folks, well, welcome. Her anxiety was sky high. She was saying, I can't do it, Mom. I can't do it. And I'm like, oh, but you've got friends there, and the counselor's going to help you, and they know the principal was great. He knew that she had been out. But getting her to this school on that day was a huge struggle. And then we definitely had, as Mr. Gertson said, some highs and lows in between throughout middle school and into high school. So I share that because I can sure relate. Greg, my partner in crime at the hospital, he too has a middle schooler, or just entering high school. And Jess has some kids as well. And so we come not only as experts tonight, and sure by no means do we have all the answers, but we hope we can collaborate with you and maybe give you some tips that might help. We also come as parents. And so we're thrilled to be here. And I want to point out, or I won't mention that there are several teenagers in our audience or preteens, and it's just great to have you guys here as well. I sure hope that you're thinking in your head what question you might ask here in a little while, because we will open up the floor for questions. So when I look at statistics on mental illness across our nation, and we know that 1 in 5 individuals struggle with some type of mental illness, that means a good number of us right here in this room may be struggling at any given time, or maybe one of our close loved ones or friends. I also think about the number of suicides that occur in our nation. Unbelievable. We need to do better. For those of you who are Royals fans, I am, big Royals fan. And if you've ever been out to the stadium, it holds roughly 37,000 people. And last year in 2020 in our nation, we filled that stadium plus 10,000 additional people out in the parking lot that died from suicide. Unacceptable. We have to start the conversation. We have to talk to our teens. That number was both children, adolescents, and adults. I should have clarified that. So we do need to work, I think, harder at breaking the stigma. I would love to see the day that we're sitting around a table with all age groups and somebody says, oh, I'm going to physical therapy because I've got some pain in my knee, which happens to be Greg over here. And for me to say, oh, you've got an appointment this week? And I say, oh, I've got an appointment with my therapist on Thursday. And then Kyra says, oh, and that it's just part of our everyday language. But if I ask today, and I won't do this, but if I did ask how many of you have ever been to a therapist by show of hands, ooh, all of a sudden those little butterflies kick in the stomach, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, lady, don't look at me. Because we're not as comfortable saying, I have a therapist. I need some extra help. And I'm encouraging you to help me, our team, these teenagers, and our school to break through that, to make it part of our everyday language. I could ask you to put up your hands and say, Parents, how many times have you signed your kid up for piano lessons? Or that extra batting practice because they just really need to be a little bit better hitter, right? Or they need a debate coach, an individual private debate coach, just to be a little bit better. I see a therapist as a life coach to help us move through things in our life that we don't know how to handle, or we just need a little extra coaching. So if you don't mind, join me in breaking down that stigma and making this part of our everyday language. Allie mentioned and Mr. Gertzen mentioned that we've teamed up with Zero Reasons Why, and I can tell you guys throughout my entire career, one of the best initiatives I've ever been a part of. And tonight, I'm not going to talk all night, although you may think, okay, lady, wind it up. I would like to hand this off in just a moment to Kyra, as we mentioned, a senior at our very own high school right here in Spring Hill. And Kyra has been a part of the Zero Reasons Why campaign. And we just want to spend a couple of minutes just telling you a little bit more about that. And I'll start that by saying in 2018, the 6 superintendents across Johnson County got together and said, we've got to do something. And they invited many key members from the community that work in this field. And I happened to get the invite. And we had this great plan. We met that summer, maybe late August. And we were like, we've got to do something. From that mental health convening that we put together, we looked around the room, and guess what was missing? Anybody? The teenagers. The teenagers. So we invited them, and out of that was born the Zero Reasons Why initiative. So Kyra, tell us, what is the Teen Council and what is Zero Reasons Why?
Right. Hello, guys. I'm Kyra Fuchs. Like Brenny said, I'm a senior, and I've been with Zero Reasons Why since my sophomore year, so that was the year it was launched, actually. Zero Reasons Why is a teen-led nonprofit organization, and we really focus on removing the stigma surrounding mental health. For many people, it's taboo to talk about mental health or suicide even. It's seen as a bad word, or I can't talk about that with my kid because then it'll make them start thinking about suicide. When really it's the exact opposite. It'll make them more aware. It'll make them more aware for their peers if their peers are struggling. And truly, if you don't talk about it, then they're going to feel like you don't understand. So with Zero Reasons Why, one of the important things that we did was we decided to storytell. So we reached out to, well, I didn't, but the organizers reached out. They asked it started with high school students. So we'll start from there because that's how much it's grown. They asked high school students, what is your struggle? Like, how have you struggled? How have you seen your peers struggle? What's been going on? And the amount of stories that have been received since 2018 to now, it is incredible. If you would like to see some, there is some on the Zero Reasons Why website or their social medias. They are just incredible. There are so many teens that are so brave for sharing their stories. And truly, it makes a difference because you read stories and you're like, hey, I'm going through that. How can I get to the place that they're in? What did they do to fix their problems? Or not fix, but to help them. And it can give you an idea that suicide truly isn't an option. There are so many other opportunities. You can speak to a therapist, a school counselor, your friends, your parents. Suicide just it's not an answer. So that was really one of the main things we wanted to get to with the Zero Reasons Why campaign. So last year, actually, Zero Reasons Why, before COVID, we had the most engagement that we ever had before. We were going to all these different events. It was really getting like the momentum that we wanted it to get. And then COVID happened. So actually, this is my first event in person since COVID, so I'm really excited to be here with all of you and sharing about middle school. Now, with that, for all you middle school parents, we actually did just start a new chapter of Zero Reasons Why, and it's actually going to be in the middle schools. If you would like more information on that, feel free to let me know afterwards, and I can get you the information that you can get for that. So,
And Zero Reasons Why, Kyra, as I understand, was kind of a tagline after those of you who knew the Netflix series of 13 Reasons Why. And so when Zero Reasons Why was first introduced, I was like, what? but kids can fill in on their bracelets. They can write on them. We have banners that kids can write in. It says 0 reasons why anyone should sit alone at the middle school lunch table. 0 reasons why you can't ask for help. 0 reasons why, and so on and so forth. And kids, it's been catchy. I'm actually very grateful that we ended up with that tagline in the name of the nonprofit. Kyra, thank you for sharing that.
Of course, thank you.
I knew you would knock it out of the ballpark. Didn't she just knock it out of the ballpark every single time? So, Jess, let's talk about preteens and teens that are in that middle school age. And can you share what kinds of things might parents see if their child is struggling?
Yes. So I think the biggest warning sign that we can see is statements, threats of suicide, right? That's going to be the biggest warning sign that we see. Whether it's an overt statement, I want to kill myself, or whether it's a veiled, passive, I wish I weren't here, even future oriented, you'd be better off without me. Those are going to be the biggest things that when we see that warning sign, that's a stop, act. Like we've got to intervene at that point. And that's whether it's on social media, posts, they feel comfortable with friends, so they'll often tell their friends, or if they're coming to us with that, we need to act right away. But outside of that, there are a lot of other warning signs. Behaviors, any change in pattern of routine of behaviors can be a warning sign. So whether it's change in sleep, appetite, energy level, that's going to be a warning sign. It's important though, I guess I want to make sure it's not just isolated warning signs. So you want to look at all the warning signs. Is there a combination of them? Because if a kid has a change in a sleep pattern, that within itself might not be a risk of suicide. But if that kid has a change in sleep pattern and then you also combine that with they're engaging in risky behaviors, like maybe they're running away, or maybe they're using substances, and then you combine that also with maybe you see a decline in their grades, the academic performance or work performance if they're working, you start to see a combination of those things, and that's definitely should be raising our awareness as parents, as educators, to be like, okay, something's going on here. Now, if a warning sign happens isolated, I think as a parent, we're concerned. We want to address that for sure. But I just wanted to make sure that we want to look at all of what's going on. We know our kids. We pay attention. We know their habits, their behaviors, and so we know when something's off, and sometimes we know when something's off before they do. So we have to talk to them about that. Other warning signs can be just withdrawing, isolating from family, social events. Maybe they were on a dance team and they said, I'm done, no real reason why. But just you start to see that they're not engaged with their friends anymore. They might be in the living room with family, but they're just kind of sitting on the couch, never engaging, talking with family. So it doesn't have to be just physically isolating and withdrawing. It can be that emotional withdrawing. And then mood swings. I mean, we all have them. We know what those are like. But when you see that it's just that persistent anxiety, restlessness, irritability, sometimes they might be snapping more than they usually do. Or aggressive, even. If they become aggressive or hostile, that's going to be a warning sign to look for. Another one would be preoccupation with death. Maybe they're talking more about dying. Maybe it's in writings. Maybe they're reading more about this, drawing more about this. That's a warning sign to pay attention to. So these are, again, they're things to be aware of as parents, to make sure that we know our kids and we're paying attention to them. So when we start to see that there's these 2, 3, 4, we're seeing multiple warning signs. That lets us know we need to intervene and address it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jess. almost everything you mentioned is kind of something I've seen with teenagers on any given day. And I think the real key part there is when you couple them together, or it's a change, as you mentioned, a change from what had been normal. That's when your alert needs to go up and start asking some questions. So, thank you. Greg, anything you want to add to that list? Or I'm sorry, Mr. Gertz.
Am I allowed to jump in?
You can jump in.
Sweet, thank
He
you.
wants to move up here to this table,
Yeah, well,
guys.
I'm trying to work my way over that way if I can. Thank you, Greg. I thought we'd just kind of share quick, talk a little. We talked about the warning signs and kids saying things and writing things and drawing things. One of the things that when I was a teacher, we didn't spend a lot of time. I mean, it's been a few years since I've been a teacher. We didn't spend a lot of time as a staff talking about what to look for and how to respond to kids. And that's definitely something that has changed in education. And we continually work with our staff on educating them on what does it look like when a student is starting to have some of those habit changes. They're starting to read, write, and draw things. And it's very, very common for a student, or excuse me, a teacher, to hear something, and they're almost kind of keyed into it, to hear things that kids say, and they will let us know immediately. Because no teacher wants to have heard something and not at least tell somebody. It can be a challenge to keep up with, but at the same time, it's something that we try to keep up with as immediately as we can. Even so that our tech department, and parents, you may know this because you may have gotten a call with it, if a student searches something that is suicide or death related, our iBoss filters catch that, and then myself and our assistant principal, we get an email at whenever it is, and so that we can see who is doing those searches. And so we know if a student is searching anything related to death. That happened yesterday. It was even yesterday. There's one. And so just kind of on the school end, we're keeping as close an eye on those warning signs as we can. And then I don't typically do that. Like I said, I don't feel like I'm as trained for that piece. But that is something that goes to Miss Riffle and Miss Fail. So I thought I'd let Miss Riffle talk just a little bit about what she does once we get that report to us at the school.
Well, if we get the report like you spoke of, we do get the online ones. That is if a student, unfortunately, we are in remote. Some of us are in remote. So when the student happens to be in remote, so we contact family, work with family and stuff like that, and obviously work with students. When they're in our building, either if it's reported through, like he talked about, the iBoss, or if the teacher's reporting it to us, they get called directly to our office, mine or Mrs. Sales. And we, do an assessment that we've been trained as professionals to do, to walk through that with them. We, determine kind of their level, whether it was just, hey, I said the wrong words and I shouldn't have said that, I'm really sorry, or yeah, I'm struggling. We reach out to family, partner with the families, bring them in, send them to support, outside, get help if they need help. There's various stages, but obviously we are trained to help and get them in the right direction. The kids sometimes, will really open up and divulge and give, quite a bit of information how they feel. So we're always happy to at least be available and have someone on site to help, and then pointing them in the right direction. That's so much why bringing, Advent here tonight, and there's, I know many other resources too to help, families realize there is help outside of, school, but we, quickly help them here. That's not something we ever wait on. And it's some of it too is like educating our kids that suicide is a very serious word. We don't throw it around. We don't, play with that word. But just letting them know how important it is. And if if you're saying it, you better mean it. Because if we don't, we don't want to joke about that. I know we have Mrs. George here too from the high school. They deal with the same thing out there and help in the same way that we do.
Thank you, Mrs. Riffle. Definitely key, and I did not know that we were able to know what people were searching. There might be a few more things I want to throw on that list. I guess I should have figured that out. Well, thank you. So Jessica's telling us about some of those warning signs that might indicate that our teen, and I use teen and preteen kind of interchangeably there because I know we have a range of ages. But Greg, can you take us down the path of what kind of risk factors, what things might be contributing to when a kid is struggling?
Sure, and let me piggyback first off of what Jess said. There is one other. It's not as common, but like Jess had already said, if you've seen a marked shift from a person's norm, so if they are normally at their mood is very low, and all of a sudden it's different. Those need to be the sorts of red flags we really look for. One of them in particular is If you know somebody's been struggling for a very long period of time, and then all of a sudden they have a very eerie sense of calm, that's a huge red flag. You need to get a hold of somebody immediately. And the reason why is, I've seen this in the past where somebody's made up their mind and they have just a sense of calm and peace about them, and then we find out it fools everybody and they've completed suicide. As far as with the risk factors go, first off, it's important to understand kind of what teen and preteens' needs are. If you look at the age category, the main developmental need that every preteen and teen is going to go through really revolves around personal and social development. The questions that need to be answered and the struggle that every kid is going to go through is, who am I? Who am I outside of my parents? Who am I with my friends? What do I think? What do I believe? You know, it's been interesting. My son, this is his first year as a freshman in high school, and unfortunately, being completely remote, a lot of those questions just remain unanswered. You know, how do I interact with friends? You know, who am I apart from my parents? And unfortunately for him, he doesn't ever get to escape us. You know, with a lot of the risk factors, what you're looking for, the things that can put a kid at a higher risk level, overall, one of the biggest categories is not feeling like they have a sense of belonging. That can play out in a lot of different areas. It could be with friends. It could be within a family system. You know, if there's ongoing conflict, if there's unresolved grief, if there is difficulties connecting with parents, difficulties connecting with friends. Could be that there's online social bullying. Could be in-person bullying. It could be that there's hot and cold behaviors from friends, and somebody just so desperately wants to be part of the front, but things like perfectionistic tendencies. I want so badly to do well. Well, why do you want to do well? I want to please my parents. I want to please my teachers. And when kids can't meet those expectations, you know, there's a lot of disappointment that can come along with that. Some other things could be if there's a family history of mental illness, if there's a family history of suicide, if there's a family history of or a personal history with any sort of substance abuse, those put kids at a much higher risk. Difficulties with housing, meeting basic needs. Could be even something like the death. You put is supposed to be here for you, and now all of a sudden they're not there. That could be a very traumatic loss. So it's important to understand that because that developmental need is there, a lot of those risk factors are going to follow along with it. And it's wise to be sensitive to understanding if you're presenting with some of these suicidal ideations, that presents itself as a need. There's something that your teen is not getting. There's a need that's not being met. It could be that they just feel completely understood and alienated by other people. And partly, as we've all talked about with mental illness, you know, I'm struggling with a mental illness and I'm afraid other people won't understand, that they won't know, they won't get it, that I'll be alienated from my peers, I'll be looked at as different. A few other things that I can think of off the top of my head is if they think that they're a burden to their family. You know, within my extended family, there have been individuals that have had some pretty serious health conditions. And unfortunately, with serious health conditions comes a feeling of being a burden. If I didn't have this illness, then you wouldn't have to do as much caretaking, whatever it might be. So even if it's not really real, it's just perceived that I feel like I'm a burden to you. If I feel like I'm a burden to other people, again, go back to some of those developmental needs. If I feel like there's something that I'm bringing to the table that is a burden to you, that's going to interfere with our relationship, and so now I feel even more alienated. So a lot of the warning signs the risk factors are really going to center around relationships. The opposite of this is true. So many of our protective factors, the things that we say, reasons to stay hopeful for, reasons to stay optimistic for, really center around, does somebody have good social supports?
Thanks, Greg. And a lot of what he just said is in a brochure, and hopefully, at least most people got them when they came in. If not, we'll definitely get them to you as we exit in a little while. All of our questions aren't pre-planned, so I wanted to ask Kyra, and I hadn't talked to you about this before, but Greg mentioned sense of belonging. Do you see teens struggling with fitting in? And if so, any suggestions of what they can do?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a problem that many teens have. It's just the idea of like middle school and high school. There's always going to be the cliques. I like to think in my own head that Spring Hill, everybody just gets along, everybody's friends with everybody, but then you have to be realistic about it, and truly there is cliques. Um, I think it's important to recognize who you are, what your values are, and then find people that align with those and don't try to be somebody that you're not. And it's such a hard lesson to learn, and truly I didn't learn it until I was a senior in high school, or a junior, I guess. That's when I made all my great friends. It's a really hard thing to learn, but it's something so important to remember. And for all of the preteens that are here today, just remember that there's always going to be somebody there that is going to be your friend, and there's always somebody there that's going to listen and understand, and that you're not weird because you like a certain thing, or that you're I don't know, in a weird activity, when really it's just really cool and it's just something unique about yourself. And it's just important to remember that you got to find people that appreciate those things about you. I think that's all I would have to say about that.
Nice job answering that impromptu question, Kyra.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's not weird. And if a kid is struggling with not fitting in, not having a friend, then you as the parent or the counselor or the principal or therapist, help be creative. Come up with ideas of ways that they can interact. On the 0 Reasons Why Instagram post, if you just go out and start scrolling through all those stories that Kyra talked about, I see kids out there who are frequently saying, I'm alone, I'm struggling. And then now they're connected. They happen to get connected through an organization that wants to help teenagers. So there are, and who would have thought that? I mean, that is really cool in my book. That kids who are feeling really isolated are now getting involved. So, Jess, have a question for you. I am a parent. If I had my middle schooler who has some friends and they're at my house, and my child says to me, Mom, one of them, or maybe I even notice, is really struggling. What, as a parent, would you do with that information? Both you've noticed it and your kids come and saying, Mom, they're telling me some really concerning things and I don't know what to do. I don't want them to get mad at me and hate me. So
Yes. So we know that adolescents feel safe with their friends. They usually will disclose things like that to their friends before any adults. So it's not uncommon that you'll have, your child or someone come to you and say, they're saying this, what do I do? And I think, too, in talking about risk factors, I think that when that happens, when they have friends coming to them sharing, it's kind of heavy stuff, right? It's stuff that needs to be talked about and shared, but sometimes they're like, I don't know what to do with this. And they get scared, they have a lot of emotions, and sometimes if they're not going to an adult or someone that can help, then they can be at risk too. Because they don't know how to manage this. They don't know how to deal with it. So yes, if my child came to me and said, my friend said, she's thinking about hurting herself, killing herself, that's a hard position as a parent. But the goal is safety, right? And so I'd be very grateful that my child told me, and then we want to act, right? Because they're making those statements. They're making, it's very clear, right? There's no question about it that they're thinking about harming themselves. So at that point, yeah, we would reach out to parents of that child. If you can contact them, find a way to contact them. Don't stop until you contact them. If police need to get involved, police need to get involved. But the long run is they need to be here, right? they have 0 reasons why. And we want to make sure that they know that they know that they have people that are in their corner, whether they want it or not, whether they like it or not. There's people that are here to say, no, you matter, you need to be here. So, yeah.
You may have already heard me tell this before, but thank you so much. That is right on target. And I was caught in a situation where my daughter showed me an Instagram post that was concerning early in high school, so beginning of freshman year. And I was very concerned. So I reached out to the parent, and I have permission to tell this story, I won't use any names, but said to me, "Thank you so much for calling me. You are the second parent that called me." The second parent? What about the 732 other friends on that Instagram post that liked it or whatever you do there? What about those parents? I was so sad that only 2 people had reached out based on a very concerning Instagram post. So please, if you see something concerning, please address it and assure your child that wouldn't you rather have your friend or this acquaintance be really angry with you for a while than to be gone.
Well,
In my book, that's a pretty easy decision. Yes, Greg?
Yeah, to piggyback off that same thing, parents, give your kids a pass. The thing is, Jess was absolutely spot on by saying they're not going to have all the answers. They're not equipped for somebody putting a pretty heavy load on them, and so it's a good idea to have a pretty frank conversation with them. This has happened to my son too. He had a friend of his that he hadn't been in contact for quite a while, and had another kid say to him some pretty heavy stuff. And of course, deer in the headlights, look, what do I do with this? Now, the work we've done beforehand is giving him the out to say, you don't have to be responsible for this. You don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Bring it to me. I mean, not only is it going to foster a sense of trust, but it also lets them off the hook that they don't have to be responsible for something. That's a lot of emotional weight to bear, and knowing that you are going to be their ally is going to help for a better outcome.
Going off of that, so with 0 Reasons Why, we've had training on different things like that. And I know not all teens can get involved with 0 Reasons Why, but I'm just going to share with you guys an important piece of information that I didn't even think about. If somebody texts you or you see something that is concerning, you don't know how to handle it, because unfortunately a lot of people don't know how to handle those situations. You are allowed to call the suicide hotline or anything along those lines. I know there's one for Johnson County and there's a national one. Yes, on these brochures. So you are allowed to call those, and you can say, I don't know how to respond to this. If you don't feel comfortable talking to your parents, they can walk you through what steps to take, what to say, how to help them. It's a really important piece of information that I just thought I'd let you guys know about.
And since teens don't ever use the phone, right, in terms of to actually talk to somebody, so 741, which is also on the back of the brochure, is the text line, and you can text with someone. And then along those lines, if you're the parent and someone, and it could even be an adult in your life, is really struggling and you think, oh, I don't know how to handle this, I'm not the expert. Again, as Kyra so on target said, you don't have to know all the answers. But what we would suggest that you do is to sit with them and even acknowledge, I don't have all the answers. I don't know what to do. But the one thing I know for sure is I'm going to stay right here beside you until we get this figured out. We're going to make some calls. We're going to do something. We're going to get you some help. As I'm glancing at my cell phone here in terms of how much time we have, Trevor, Mr. Gertson, sorry. We should have booked this for like 5 hours, right? But I do want to acknowledge if anybody does need to exit because of another commitment, feel free. We want to cover a few resources, and then I do want to open this up so that some parents can ask some questions, if that's okay. Got it? And they will be going around with the microphone, or if you don't want a microphone, you can just shout it out. So some resources, definitely 0 Reasons Why website has some, and on the back of this brochure, we have Johnson County Mental Health and also Elizabeth Layton Center, which is the Miami County Community Mental Health Center. Both are great resources. The Johnson County Mental Health Center has a crisis line open 24 hours a day. A therapist just sitting there waiting to talk. And so if you want somebody local, that might understand, where Spring Hill is versus calling the national Lifeline number, which also has excellent resources. But if you want somebody local, I really encourage you to call that number. We also at Advent Health have an assessment center. And I didn't say this earlier, Advent Health is the old Shawnee Mission Medical Center, for those of you who may have heard that. And we're up at 75th and I-35. And we have an assessment center where we offer assessments to 12-year-olds and up. And that is at no cost. If you're struggling and you just don't know what direction to go, and you're thinking, I don't know if they need inpatient treatment or they might need an outpatient therapist, or I just don't know, you can sure call. That number's listed, and we'll get you in typically within 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, once in a while when we get really busy. And emergency departments, if really a kid's struggling and you don't know where to turn, emergency departments are open, of course, 24 hours a day. So, yes, jump in.
Am I allowed to jump in? I was going to say, one of the things as a school, email, but we've definitely had families who will email us and say, my child received an email from a friend, we don't know what to do, and they'll contact us, and that is okay. That is okay to do that. It's not uncommon. I would love for them to go to more an immediate resource, because what always makes me nervous is we don't check email all the time. And I know for me, I try to shut my email off when I get home so I can go home and be a dad and be a husband. But if you see something or have something concerning, you can email us and we can kind of step in and help out. We've made those calls before. We say, hey, mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, it's been reported to us. We just want to make sure you keep you in the loop. I know for Miss Riffle and I, we would rather have an awkward conversation with a parent about something than not do anything. And so if it means, and Miss Riffle is really good at this, calling and saying, hey, I have some hard things I need to talk to you about. I don't know how serious it is, but it's serious enough that I want to talk to you and have you have a conversation with your child. We've also had police go visit families at night before, that we've received information that says, hey, we need to get somebody there now. We'll call local Spring Hill PD and say, hey, go do a wellness check at that house, and we'll ask the local PD to go knock on a door and say, is everything okay here? We just want to make sure everything is okay in this home. As awkward as it is, we would rather have awkward moments with people than have something horrific happen. And so we try to respond as quickly as we can when those things do come to us. So you're always welcome to contact us, but go to those immediate emergency folks first, because you'll get that immediate support with them. But you're always welcome to reach out to us as well.
Thank you. Absolutely. So let's move into some questions. Folks showed up for a reason tonight. What's on your mind? What would you like to ask? First one. Right in the back. And actually, before you ask your question, if you don't mind if I take one moment. Grace, welcome. Grace, can I tell the story? Grace's mother reached out to me today and said, my daughter would like to be more involved, has had to have some of her own personal struggles, and wants to help. And she's a junior at Paola High School. And I said, hey, how about if you and your stepdad come, and how about if we have you at our event tonight, and she's going to try to take this kind of stuff back to her school. So way to go, Grace. I'm so proud of you. Now for your question. How do you start that conversation?
Sure. Just so I'm clear on this, you're giving that information to others, or others are bringing it to you? Typically, the best approach for both lines of communication when it comes to anything related to suicide or if you're struggling is to be very, very direct. And what I mean by that is if I'm asking somebody what's going on, I will have a very direct conversation with them and ask them, are you feeling suicidal? Because it's a yes or no question. And if it's a yes, tell me more. So it invites the conversation. Likewise, if you're struggling, it's best to be very clear to say, I am struggling, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I want to have happen. And unfortunately, I would hope that most parents would be receptive to that, but if not, that's why we provide the resources that we do, just so that you've got at least another avenue to go through to be able to get part of what you need, or at least get you directed to the other people that can help get you what you need.
And I'm going to bump it over real quick to Jess. Thank you, Greg. Jess and I were just talking yesterday in my office about big conversations and little conversations.
Yeah.
Can you
yeah.
weigh in?
I mean, I think I got some of the best advice when I was pregnant with my first kid was if we're not talking with our kids about the little things, they're not going to talk to us about the big things, right? So, when I'm cooking dinner and my kid wants to talk to me about this fun new game that they have, if I'm brushing them off or, minimizing it, they're not going to feel safe to talk to me about even bigger things, right? So we want to make sure that they know no matter what they have to say, their voice matters, and I'm here to listen to you. You're going to be heard. And so this is the perfect time to lay that foundation with your kids and make sure that they know that they can come to you with the little things and the big things. You can have all those conversations so that when something like that happens, Grace, you're going to feel more confident, secure in going to them and knowing they're going to listen to me. I know they're going to hear me, right?
And parents, put your cell phones down and turn the TV off. I think we did a show of hands again. We are all guilty of not doing very good jobs at that, right? So put them down and listen. And Grace, I think you have to lean in and just say to that parent, and I would have you share this with your friends, Mom and Dad, I don't know how to say this. I don't even know where to go, but I need some help. And be that brutally honest and just put it on the table. And as Greg said, if you don't get that response that you're looking for, you may have to go through another resource. But I would definitely start at home. And thank you for being so brave to bring up the very first question. You get a stress ball at the end of the evening. They're out on the table. And we had a question up here. We had a question up here. Hey, all, did you see that over there? She was playing on her phone. So, hey, all, did you see that over there? She was playing on her phone. So I'm going to jump in and say, when in doubt, do it. I mean, don't even second guess it. If it was a little issue and you addressed it with another parent and it really was a little issue, maybe you'll get to know that parent better. I would start that conversation with the other parent of, hey, I don't know if you're open to this or not, but I've got some feedback that I feel is important to share with you. Would you be okay with that? I hope at that point they don't shut the door. Hopefully they're like, well, yeah, what? Start it off kind of soft and then approach it. In
Ready?
terms,
Could you repeat the question that she asked? Just to make sure those
okay.
that are the
Oh,
streaming
yes.
could hear the
So the
question
question
that was asked. So.
how do I know if things are big or little and when to address it with another parent and not everybody's open to it? So I was suggesting just being direct and saying, I'd like to share some information I have with you. All right. The next thing I want to say, and then somebody else please chime in, is, wow, your kid's talking to you. I don't care if they tell you about every single fight in Spring Hill Middle School. They are talking to you. The one tip I might suggest is, as they're sharing about Sally and Joe and Sally and Susie and Sally and whomever, I would say, so tell me, as an outsider looking at that, as you were watching, what were you thinking? Or gosh, if you were in the receiving end of that, how would you have handled that? So you're kind of moving it back, and the radar now is on your child to see how their coping skills are. Or as you were seeing this drama, you nodded your head a minute ago, didn't you? Uh-huh. As you were seeing this drama play out, did you stick up for anybody? Did you advocate? Or you probably wouldn't use that word, but with your kid, but what did you do? Could you have spoken up to help out Sally? So involving your child into the picture of that scenario they're describing every single night to you. Great questions. You were nodding your head really big when she was saying the conflict in middle school. Do you have a question or even a comment? And then Kyra, I know you do. So, oh, actually, you know what? Do you mind talking into the microphone? Great. And what is your first name? Abby. Incredibly brave to be talking about in front of all these adults.
I know that this week there's been a lot of drama going on at school.
Hold on just a second. Trevor, I'm not sure the mic's working very well. Okay, go ahead, Abby.
I know that this week there's been a lot of drama at school between just all the girls.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
How are you coping with that?
It's more of people are like, you pick me or you pick them, and I'm like, no, I'm not picking.
You know what? You can just say,
fun.
I have so much love to give. Y'all get some, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really incredible, Abby, for you not to pick sides. And that is hard to do. And it's also hard to pick up for the kid that's getting picked on, especially if it's somebody you're kind of a little intimidated about. But you know what? You've got a voice, and I would sure encourage you to use it. Kyra, thank you. Kyra, you were going to add in, and then maybe Greg?
Yes, so this is going back to the original question of when do you know, like, when to speak up on something. From personal experience and being around my friends, small things, if they're not addressed, they turn into really, really big things. So it's always important to address the small things because it can turn into something like suicide. I mean, it always starts somewhere. So it's always important to just address the small things and don't be afraid to reach out. So that's all I had to share.
Well, I was just going to say, too, that, the way that you describe it, just, the over, it can just kind of be glossed over as normal or mundane, that this is just the thing that happens, I hate to use this example, but having also worked in a correction system, it's like, okay, well, what incidents did we have today? Who got in a fight with who? And you just go about it like it's just the norm. That's just what happens. But yet, a good way to involve your kids back in it is tell me your perceptions. Like, what did you think about it? What did you feel about it? And then, like Jess had said earlier, is it a marked shift from normal? Like, if they're saying that, okay, this was normal, I didn't really like it, but it didn't really bother me, versus when it turns around and says, this wasn't okay today. There was something about it that just did not set well. Okay, tell me more. What's going on with that? Draw more out of them. Again, get their perceptions on it. It doesn't always have to be, well, tell me how that makes you feel. Because I can tell you, my son hates it when I ask him that.
What other questions do we have? Thank you, Greg. Yes, over here. Trevor's going to, we definitely went the microphone because of, and I apologize earlier since we are having this live streamed.
This is less of a question and more of a comment, kind of going off what Abby said. like everything at school now is just kind of like really dramatic and blown out of proportion, and people keep involving me in their situations. And how do I tell people like to leave me out of it and that I don't want to be involved with it?
And your first name?
Rory.
Rory, thank you so much for that question. I would probably validate that person who's coming to you to say, gosh, this must be really tough, or some phrase like that. But you know what? I am working really hard right now to not be involved in a lot of conflict and a lot of stuff that belongs to other people. So thanks for sharing with me, but is there anything else you and I can talk about? Because I really don't want to go down that path talking about Sally. That's not my game. That's not my thing right now. Is that something you would be able to say?
Yeah.
And
No, I'm not starting all over, surely. Anyway, there's a lot of times the stuff that you guys are hearing, you know, it doesn't make it to the office all the time, or it doesn't make it to somebody. Don't be afraid to turn to the kids and say, look, this is a problem that adult needs to help with, and we want you to go to an adult instead, and send them to a teacher, send them to Mr. Gertzen, send them to Miss Weitzel, send them to me, send them to Miss Fales. We have lots of people here that can take those problems that are weighing you down and help with them. So that way they're not weighing you guys down.
thank you, Mrs. Riffle. One thing I was meant to say earlier, and I think I didn't say this, but some parents will say to me, well, I don't know if they're really thinking about self-harm or harming themselves. It's probably just for attention. And my response to that is, if a child is going to that extreme to get attention, let's pay attention. Let's get them some help and address it. So whether for attention, that means a need that Greg talked about earlier is not being met, and let's tap into those resources. So we have time for one more question, and then we're going to have to wind down because we're well over our time slot, and I apologize. So yes, back here. And Trevor's going to run his microphone over there, and your first name, you're going to shout it out, is? Well, I didn't hear you. Curtis?
This is Mr. Curtis.
Curtis.
Okay. It's like, you know how like you said something about the people like doing it just for attention. It's like what if they're like being abused and stuff, and like people, and like they're just like, and like people like they don't believe them because like they mostly do it for attention, and like they're really not going through anything. But like as soon as they're going through something, no one believes them. Like how are they gonna like shout for help if something's like really going on?
So if I understood your question correctly, so a kid who might be doing it for attention, or at least on the surface, people see it as though maybe they're crying out for help and wanting for some attention, but there might be some really big stuff going on in their life, such as abuse. Is that where you're headed?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Then I would definitely want that person to get immediate help, because if there's stuff going on in their personal life, home or at a friend's house or something, where they're being abused, we want to get them help immediately. We do not want them to have to act on how awful they're feeling, because we do know that help can benefit that kid. And again, I would just echo what Mrs. Riffle said and what Mr. Gertzen said. The school is here, and they can definitely get you connected to some professionals, people that can help and offer a lot of support. Thank you for that question.
Is it okay if I chime in just real quick? Along those same lines, too, and I think I'm getting what you're saying, Curtis, as far as it's kind of hard to believe somebody when the same statements are happening over and over and over again. I would exercise some caution, however, because somebody that engages in self-harm behavior or has had multiple suicide attempts, even if they're not serious attempts, what it amounts to is kind of like a practice run. Every time that I do it, it only strengthens my resolve that if I am going to go through with it, it makes it a little easier, if that makes sense what I'm getting at. And so we don't want to ignore, even if it is, again, like Randy said, even if it's what seems like a cry for attention, there's a need behind it. What is that need?
It's not our job to judge it, right? Like if someone says that, we're not the judge. We're taking what they say as this is what I mean, right? We want to help.
So we're going to wind down, and I am going to ask each of the folks on the panel just to say one closing thought, anything that comes to your mind, anything that you want to make sure that we have not missed tonight. And Jess, she's raising her eyes like, oh, don't put me on the spot. Kyra,
I think I just
what's
said
one
it.
last thing? Oh, you just said it. Okay, Kyra.
My last thought for tonight is something that's really important for, I speak more for the preteens and the teens, I guess, but validation, even parents, feelings are always valid, and it's important to recognize those things. So your student or your friend or yourself even, it's important to recognize your feelings because you are going through something and you don't have to compare it to what everybody else is going through because your feelings are valid as well. Validation, even parents.
Sign her up. Do you want a job? Okay, we've got an opening. So, Greg. You can take Greg's place. How's that?
The only thing I was going to say, just with with parents, just be paying attention. I mean, the thing is that if your kids are trying to tell you something, like Jess already said, we don't need to be the judges of it, but do what you can to try and draw it out. Kids, don't be afraid to say something. The thing is that the likelihood that what you're feeling or what you're going through, there's a very high likelihood that somebody else is going through something very similar or has been through something similar. You are not alone.
Thank you, Greg. Mrs. Riffle, any final comments?
Piggybacking off what Kyra said, is it not close enough? Is it not loud enough? All right. Let me just take this down. You're not buying me anymore. Okay. But piggybacking off that is the validation is key. You can see, instantly when you say, I hear you, I feel you, and I understand, a lot of times their shoulders will drop. And you say, I'm listening. Listening is key, making sure they know you're listening. That means we turn our mouths off and we listen and we let them talk. And, we don't try to chime in until they're done, and sometimes even asking them, do you want help for this or do you just want me to listen?
That's a really great question. Do you want me to help with this or do you want me just to listen and be by your side? Thank you. Mr. Gertzen, 10 words or less.
Not happening. Not happening.
I know.
I mean, one of the things, Greg, he met with our staff last week and worked with our staff because we'd had some situations here that just felt like deemed some additional support. One of the things he talked to staff was when someone brings you something, there's a question of, what would you like me to know about this situation? I can't solve it for you. I can't fix it for you. But what would you like me to know? And then putting it back on that person. Because as soon as you become that go-to, you'll continue to be that go-to, and everyone's going to keep coming to you with that. And that's not what you're trying to do, because then you feel the weight on your own shoulders. And that's not, you're not equipped to handle that weight. You have your own weight to handle. Ms. Kaiser had mentioned, kids are, I do think in my 16 years, middle school kids have changed in some of the ways they view life. It's different now. And it's different because of this darn thing right here. Because the things our kids see and hear and are exposed to now, I think there's a brazenness, and I think brazen is the right word. There's a brazenness that our kids have now that they didn't have when I first got into teaching because of the things that they're exposed to and the things they see on a constant daily basis. So, and I'll hear parents say all the time, well, when I was in middle school, throw that out the window. Like, it is just not the same. She might literally have been 90. Over the weekend at Easter, she's like, I just don't understand why kids even need a phone. Just don't even give them a phone. That's a simple thing to say, but it's not realistic. It's just not. Like, you're going to have access to it. It's learning how to control it. And listen, I'm going to do a quick social media plug because I love social media, but if there's anything I encourage parents to do, limit what social media your kids have access to in middle school. There's a lot of research that talks about their brains just can't handle the access to information at minimum till 8th grade, till they're 14, 15 years old. You just can't handle it. They may tell you that everybody's on TikTok, everybody's on Snapchat. Well, you don't have to be everybody. Be the one that says you don't need it, you'll be okay. You will be okay without having access to social media. I've never seen a kid do better because they had TikTok. Like, I've never seen that. I've seen plenty of kids and parents that their kid is a completely different person once they got a hold of Snapchat and TikTok and whatever social media is out there. And so that'd be my one little plug. I know that wasn't 10 words or anything. I apologize. Actually, I don't.
I am so glad you're not apologizing. So I want to give a quick shout out to Aubrey. Aubrey, thank you for stepping in tonight and giving up your evening to help us with the audio, video, all of this stuff, all the technology. And I understand you are, correct me if I'm wrong, an 8th grader here at the middle school? Thank you. I really appreciate it. And also, I don't believe the gentleman that's helping do the setup and here cleaning and stuff is in here right now, but if you could definitely pass on our thanks.
Mr. Bill.
Mr. Bill.
Mr. Bill.
Really appreciate him. And then to the parents, thank you. Thank you for being here. I wish we could fill this auditorium on nights like tonight, like we fill our ball stadiums and our orchestras and choir performances. And someday that dream of mine is going to come true because parents are going to want to know more. But since all the parents aren't here, if you could just pass on one nugget to another parent, I personally thank you for doing that. And for the teens and the preteens that are in the room, thank you. Appreciate you guys participating. Tyra, I love you. I love you dearly, and I'm not making that up. I do. And I just appreciate you having a voice. Grace, good luck to you carrying this forth to Paola. Randy, let us know what we can do to help you. And we will stay around for a few more minutes afterwards. If you have some private questions, please approach one of us.
We promise we won't bite.
Maybe. Mr. Gertzen, I cannot thank you enough for setting this up and the time that went into the planning. It's much appreciated. We'll do this every school year or twice a year, whatever you guys might need. Because the loss of a teen, preteen, parent, community member, it's too much. I shared some statistics when we opened tonight and said something about 47,000, I don't know if I said that, but 7,000 people take their lives in a given year. And that's one single family, 47,000 times. And it's too much. So let's do better, Spring Hill. We need your help. Thank you.
Okay, I'm actually going to, I know we're done. Miss George has a quick announcement about something that Spring Hill is also offering that I want to make sure we get out there.
Try to talk fast.
10 words or less, Mrs. George.
No, thank you. No, not. Mr. Gertzen mentioned this.
Okay, I'm actually
when we were in middle school, what it was like, the social media and all the things. One thing that is better about today's age is resources. I can remember not seeing a not seeing a counselor in any of my schools until I reached high school, and I had a wonderful high school counselor, but he did sit and smoke his pipe all day long, which is just crazy to me, and that makes me feel like I'm 80, and I'm not. But one wonderful things that we actually have our resources, and we do at the high school and the middle school and the district do a lot of work with Johnson County Mental Health. I run an organization called PALS, which is a peer helping program that Kyra and actually Sloan, Runny's daughter, kind of my go-tos, and they are trained to kind of help our peers on the front lines. And this year we unfortunately weren't able to go to our retreat that we always go to, and so we had Johnson County Mental Health come in, or do virtually come in. That's how we Zoom in, and they did a little talk with our kids about how to use that crisis line. And they actually did some live calls to the crisis line. We kind of pranked them. So I really encourage your kids to use that, or parents to use that crisis line, because they are there 24 hours. And so I always tell my kids when they come in, hey, it's 2 a.m, you've got no one to talk to. You call this crisis line about absolutely anything. That is what they are there for, and they are trained. And we are really excited that they are have offered to do their QPR training with our parents. One of the things that we kind of always talk to at schools is we feel like a lot of the stuff comes to us at schools, and it should. We are in charge of these kiddos, but we can't do it all. We can't be the eyes and ears. We're there for 8 hours a day, like Mr. Gertzen said, and then we go home, and we may check our emails, and some of us check their emails to a fault. but Rennie said that we shouldn't do that, so I'm gonna stop doing that and be present with my own kiddos. So we really are excited to offer this QPR program. It's question, persuade, refer. It's kind of a take on CPR, but for mental health. It's a 90-minute program by an actual trainer, one of the Johnson County mental health staff members, Megan Clark. It's Zoom. It's free. It normally costs money, but the district is going to cover the bill for us, so we're excited about that. It is going to be offered on, I think the date we settled on was April 29th, and there's going to be 2 sessions. So there's going to be one in the morning from 9 to 10:30. So if that works for you, and then there's also going to be one in the evening. It is a program that you have to register for. It's an actual course. So if you want to register for it, it's directly through Johnson County Mental Health, so the numbers and the information is on there for you to do that. So the more people that we can get trained, just like our peer helpers are trained to be able to listen to kids, the more people, the more help for all of this crisis, the better. So that was 1,000 more words than 10.
532 words. That's what I was just going to say. I saw the flyers out on the table. Elise is going to be out there, right, Elise? Passing out some merchandise from Zero Reasons Why, as well as the brochure with the resources listed. Thank you once again for your evening and for coming and participating.